What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I hope you like this video. This is a new show alert. Well, it's actually season 2 of a new show, Reasonable Doubt, right? Reasonable Doubt comes on Hulu. So if you have Hulu, go over there and check it out. If you do not have Hulu, I would suggest you try to find somewhere to find it because it's actually a really, really good show. It's executive produced by Kerry Washington and her production company. She's not actually on the show. She stays behind I think she even directed a few episodes last season, I believe. But the premise of the show is Jax, who plays a high-powered attorney. If you go back to season 1, you see, it's she plays this high-powered attorney that gets into she is a defense attorney. Last season, she had a high-powered sort of like a Bill Gates type character, but he was a black guy. She was defending him against allegedly unaliving his mistress. It's a really, really good show that gets into a whole lot of other twists and turns and things like that. Well, part of the backdrop of last season, one, she's having marital issues. She's going through some things with her husband, between her career and his career and that kind of thing. But we also met her group of girlfriends. And one of her girlfriends was married to a pro athlete, an NFL player. And we saw glimpses into their marriage last season where he was abusive. Well, at the end of season 1, like I said, a lot happened in season 1. I actually reviewed season 1. You guys can go find my playlist on my main channel, ReallyBTV. The Reasonable Doubt playlist is there. But in the very, 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 very final scene of the episode of season 1, we see where her friend calls her and tells her, "Hey, I just unalived my husband." And she's like, "Wait, what?" So we knew that they left us on a cliffhanger for season 2, and we were waiting for season 2 to come along. Now, in season 2, we have Morris Chestnut, and we also know that Candy Burris is going to be a part of season 2. Haven't seen her yet. She comes in later on in the season, but just so you know that's that. We see Morris Chestnut in like the last 5 minutes of this episode, but he's a main part of season 2. So last season, Jax, again, the main character, she was involved in a relationship where the guy became obsessive. Again, you gotta go. I'm not gonna tell you the whole thing, but we pick up where we left off, where there was a very traumatic situation that happened at the end. So we see that she's in therapy. She was on a forced leave of absence from her job until she was able to go to therapy, and her therapist cleared her to go back to work. Her and her husband are trying to work things out. We see they're in a better place than where we left off last season. He is actually spending the night, but he's leaving before the kids wake up because they don't want to confuse the kids. They have not totally reconciled. And according to her, when her therapist asked, "Are y'all intimate?" she was like, "No, we're not intimate yet." But we do see that they're sleeping in the bed together, and I guess they're cuddling, okay? So we almost pick up exactly where we left off. They kind of do a flashback to that scene, but we actually see her in therapy. It is the last therapy session, and her therapist actually clears her to go back to work, but her therapist tells her, "Listen, you don't have to go back if you're not ready." And she's like, "Well, no, the partners expect me back. I have to go back." And her therapist is like, "But you don't." And so then she says, "Listen, you're doing well. I'm going to clear you to go back to work. But I am going to caution you and tell you, listen, you don't have to go back if you're not ready. And you can set your boundaries. You don't have to work as hard. You don't have to work as much. You can put your boundaries in place." But we do see where she said, "Listen, I feel better about, I've been able to spend time with my kids and not feel that guilt, and that kind of thing." You almost get the impression that she's not necessarily ready to go back to work, but she feels like she has to go back to work. I think she enjoys her job, but I think she has definitely enjoyed the not having the stress of the job. But we see her, the next day we see her jogging, and that's where we picked up last season. She was out jogging. Jogging is her therapy. That's her thing. She goes jogging every morning. And that's when she got the phone call from her friend. Well, we see a little bit more into that this episode, where we see the friend and hold on, let me get my notes because y'all know I wrote these people's names down, child. Chanel is the friend, and John Marion Tucker is the football player. So Chanel, we see where they were arguing, and she hit him upside the head with something. We see where he literally is like cussing at her, and then he tells her call 911. But you can see that he's slowly losing life, right? And then we see she stands there the whole time until she literally sees that he is no longer among us. And then we don't necessarily see things in the order in which they happen, but we do see the police show up. We see that she showed up. We know that she called Jax, and I guess at some point she called the police. Jax shows up. The police try to stop her. She says, "Listen, that's my sister. I need to get in there and talk to my sister." She tells her, "Listen, don't you say nothing. We're gonna, before you make any statements, we're gonna get you to the hospital." Because she clearly had marks. The friend had marks around her neck. She had marks on her face. So there was clearly some sort of physical situation that took place. And so she goes to the hospital. And while she's at the hospital, police actually go in to talk to her. And she has to sort of say, hey, this is, that's my client. You can't talk to her, and the police are like, well, we just want to get a statement. She said, that's cool, but she's in shock. And the doctor did say that there was some, that she had a bruised rib that was at least a week old, and that, that there was an assault somewhere. She had been assaulted a week earlier, and that there were, contusions and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. She hurt her wrist and all kinds of stuff. So there was clearly some sort of altercation, and there was evidence that there was prior bruising. So this is literally how she goes back to work the next day. We see her investigator, her personal assistant, who we met all of those people last season. They are happy to see her, ready to get back to work. Of course, because he's a football player or a former football player, it is headline news. It is, the press is on it. And so she is managing it all, right? She's managing the press. She's managing the friends. She's managing the police. She's back at work. She's back in the thick of things. And almost immediately, she goes back to her old habits as far as her relationship with her husband. And he is like, we're right back where we started, right? You take your phone calls, you interrupted important conversations that we're trying to have so that you could take these phone calls, you could deal with this. And he was like, listen, you can't represent her. Like, that's your friend. That's a conflict. And she's like, I'm not going to represent her. This should really be open and shut. This shouldn't even be a situation because, this should really be self-defense. Like, she was defending herself, right? Well, of course, we wouldn't have a season if it was going to be an open and shut case. Her investigator, so she's really good friends with the DA. So she goes down to talk to the DA. She takes some donuts and all of that. And he's telling her, listen, based on the evidence, we haven't made a decision yet. And she says, well, wait a minute. This happened, and that happened. And he was like, okay, well, if all of that pans out, then it looks like it's probably just going to be self-defense. We're going to probably be able to, make it happen. But there's a new DA in town, and she is not here for the shenanigans, okay? And she decides that she decides that she's not here for it. Now, the bad news is the coroner's report comes back, and it finds out that based on the coroner's report, that her friend waited a whole hour before she called the police, okay? So that man lay there dying for an hour before anybody called the police. The second thing that came back in the coroner's report that was bad is that, not the coroner's report, but in the investigation is that the friend called Jax before she called the police. And Jax was like, wait, I thought you told me you called the police first and then you called me. And she was like, listen, I don't remember what happened. I was in shock. It was all happening so fast. How was I supposed to remember who I called first? And Jax was like, look, this ain't looking good for you. Like, I really thought this was going to be open and shut, but you're going to have to explain some things. And the third thing that's not good is it looks like she moved the body. And she was like, I didn't move the body. I was checking to see if he was still alive. I was afraid. Because what she said was, I don't know how long it was between me calling the police and when it happened. I ran upstairs and hid because I was afraid he was going to get up and come and keep beating me. Or better yet, kill me. So yes, I ran upstairs and I waited. He didn't come after me. I came back downstairs. I checked to see if he was alive or not. And that's when I called. I thought I called the police first, but I guess I called you first. Don't know. I was in shock. It was a lot going on. Now, the reality of the situation is all of that could be plausible. That could make sense. You're in a fight. This man been beating on you. You hit him. You didn't think he was down for the count. You ran upstairs and hid because you just knew he was going to come back. He was going to whoop your E. It all makes sense. But from the prosecution point of view, now it goes from self-defense to premeditation. At the least, manslaughter. So this new DA has decided to, I'm not fooled by your little donuts. I'm not friends with you. We don't go back to law school. So I'm looking at these facts with clear eyes. And what it looks like to me is that your little friend decided that she was going to get back at her husband. And this was all premeditated and it was planned out. And that is what I feel. And that is how I'm going to move accordingly. And they have decided to charge Chanel with first degree murder. Okay? We see Chanel getting arrested. We see the perp walk and all these other things. And Chanel realizes, okay, I can't do this. Like this is real now. She's been charged with murder. This is a conflict of interest. I need to find somebody that is going to be just as good as I am. Okay? In walks Morris Chestnut. Morris Chestnut, we see in the final scene, he is getting it in with some woman. We don't know who this woman is. We don't know if she a client, a secretary, another lawyer. We don't know. But they are getting it in. Okay? And it is, they getting it in. The phone rings. I mean, they're finished. But they're, basking in the afterglow of it all. The phone rings, and baby, he hits her. He answers the phone. He hits that it's Jackson on the phone. And he hits her with the, "Can you give us a minute?" She was like, "I'm sorry, what? You want me to exit?" That's what. So she leaves with an attitude, but he could care less. And Jax is asking him for his help. So that's how the first episode ends. Let me go back a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about Jax and her husband. Listen, in my opinion, the minute Jax went back to work, baby, they was right back where they started, right? Like I told you earlier, she's taking phone calls. She's breaking plans. She needs him to pick the kids up. So they go to this session, couples therapy, which they've been trying to get into couples therapy. Baby, Jax shows up late. Mind you, couples therapy was her idea. She shows up late. She tells the man she got to leave early. And in between time and in the meantime, she's argumentative and just wants to be right. And the therapist was like, listen, I'm not here to make somebody right or wrong. I'm here to hear both sides and help you guys figure it out. He said, let me ask y'all a question. Do y'all want to work this out? And both of them are like, yeah. He was like, okay, well, at least we can start there, that both of y'all want this to work. He said, but at the end of the day, y'all are going to have to come to some understandings. And, again, Jax is very much on the, I can do this. I can do it all. I'm every woman. I got to go back to work because I have to, I got to keep us in the lifestyle we become accustomed to. And he was like, don't do that. Like, don't throw your paycheck in my face. Don't do that. Because while you out, creating this lifestyle, I'm picking the kids up from school and I'm helping them with their homework. Like, we all got to roll in this situation. Well, we see them have a argument and we see him leave. But by the end of the episode, she apologizes and she says, listen, you're right. Like you're right. She tried to tell the partners that she wanted to cut back and they wasn't trying to hear it. So, I see where this season is going with her trying to figure out things with her job and her work-life balance. But they do seem to be in a better space than they were last year. Because last year I thought they was about to be divorced, child. So they do at least look like they're trying to figure these things out. So anyway, that was pretty much the first episode. Like I said, it's a good show. I enjoyed season 1. I'm looking forward to seeing how season 2 is going to play out. Let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.